guys. I hope you're all doing well and I hope you're all staying safe. Today is going to be the first interview from the series of interviews we're going to put out, interviewing past members that have joined the SDME and some of our sponsors. Before I get the chance to let the interviewee introduce herself, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Tala Alwali, a member from Team Sharjah. Now I open the floor to Ms. Rima. Go ahead and introduce yourself to all of the viewers.
Hi, first of all, Tala, it's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for inviting me over to do this interview. So my name is Rima. I was a part of the Team Know Howse, which was the team participating from the University of Sharjah. And my role in that team was communication coordinator, which I think we'll get in depth with and sort of talk about today. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's get right onto it. As you just mentioned, your role in Team Know Howse. Can you just elaborate a little bit on your role and what did you do to help the team achieve its mission and goals?
Okay, so basically the role that I was given was to be communication coordinator. And we were actually a team, so we were the communication team. And the Know Howse was, right, it's true, it was an innovation project, but we also considered it to be an educational program. So when the communication team came, we realized how important it was to sort of communicate that to the people who were following us on our platforms and sort of keeping up with all the, during the different stages of the competition. So our role was basically to sort of raise awareness, especially that the project was targeting a generation that environmentally was sort of lacking in that aspect. So we wanted to let people know a little bit more about energy consumption, sustainability, and a really good example was we use social media. So we had our platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we would occasionally post things like, you know, no house knows it all. And it was a play on words because it was sort of telling them that we kind of like were the Know Howse, and we were teaching them little things to do, things that they could change in sort of like their, for example, habits, or educating them on things like, you know, this label, for example, is much better than that label, and why was that? The materials we were using, a lot of the times people were very curious to know that we were not using the conventional materials that are used in the region. So it was an education process from the beginning all the way to the end, even through our activities, even through when we met the sponsors. And the main important thing was our educational gadgets, our communication gadgets. So even through that, it wasn't about dictating what we wanted to say. It was sort of letting the user go through this experience of learning it themselves so that they feel like, I kind of like understood, you know, why they're saying this or why they're letting me know about this type of information. So yeah.
Oh, okay, that's absolutely fantastic. Of course, as we all know, communication is the biggest part of our world right now. It's a way to get your idea across to everyone. So that's absolutely amazing. Now that you've actually been through the entire process, the entire competition period, would you be able to identify the strongest and the weakest qualities of the team back then? And how would you suggest improving it for the Solar Decathlon 2021?
Okay, so that's actually a very great question because I think all the team members who have participated, it was our first time doing the Solar Decathlon. It was actually our first time even learning about this competition. In terms of its strengths, I would say that the Know Howse architecturally was able to target its audience as it intended in its mission. So initially we were saying that we wanted to educate the society and particularly nationals. And this was very specific to the region because we're so heavily subsidized, we tend to lose track of how much energy we're consuming and the fact that we're not really living a sustainable life. So in terms of how we solved that architecturally, I think it was very interesting because it took in consideration our cultures and our traditions. It took in consideration the fact that we have segregation between men and women, how we live in houses, and because we tend to sort of create more space that we don't actually need. And that goes back to the motto, which is you can live small, but you can live comfortably. And we sort of showed that through the project that Know Howse presented during the Solar Decathlon. In terms of weakness, I would consider them a lesson learned rather than saying it was a weakness. I think the team sort of was still processing how this whole competition came together, the idea of being able to submit the house within 2 weeks, because that's pretty much the deadline that we had. And I don't think we realized it until it actually happened, that we were there on site and that we had to submit this within that time frame, because we're used to construction taking years, and for us it was an entirely new concept. So there was a lot of things to consider, such as the technologies that we wanted to integrate. There were more technologies that we could have integrated. In terms of, for example, the interior design, we did very well in terms of architecture, and it would have been even more interesting to get into detail about how we can make the, for example, the interior more regionally focused in terms of how we designed it and so on. So that and also networking. Networking was actually very, very important. I think one of the things that we tried to push for was to network as much as we can. And I think we were able to achieve that to some point. But if I was to pass the lesson learned, it would be network, 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 for sure.
Fair enough. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. You've also just now mentioned about like the deadlines, and when you were on the site and you had to put this entire project together in such a small amount of time. That actually moves us on to my next question is, personally, what was your favorite part of the competition? Was it the research or the construction?
Well, honestly, the Soda Decathlon was an interesting experience all over, from the beginning all the way to the end. But if I was to pick one phase that I thought was very interesting, I would definitely say construction, because it's seldom that students, especially architectural students, get to see their projects be constructed. So this was actually our very first project that we worked on during research along with the team, and then later on was actually seeing it being realized. So it was very, very interesting from that aspect. And I think also the fact that it was the material that we used, because it was not a material that we're familiar with. We actually used CLT just in case people were curious to know. And we were usually familiar with the idea of using other types of conventional materials. And then after that, it was prefabrication. So pieces that were already prefabricated that come to site and should be assembled a completely different way from what we're taught or we learn. And I think the introduction of that technology, being on site, seeing it actually happen, was definitely one of my favorite phases. So yeah.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for answering that and elaborating on that. Moving on now to the actual, like the post phase of the competition. Now that you're a graduate, what was the most valuable thing that you've learned whilst working with Team Know Howse, and how did that translate into your postgraduate life?
One of the things that I think was very important was that we worked as a multidisciplinary team. So we came from across various fields. And now with me and during my actual job, so my role in the work field, I can see how important it was to understand how to work with people from different teams and to understand their aspects when it comes to the project. Because sometimes we could be so concentrated on the architectural aspect of things, and we tend to innovate in that, and then we forget that there is a lot more to address. So I think it was definitely that part of it.
Okay, that's absolutely perfect. Now moving on to the last question for today. What advice would you give for future students participating in the SDME, such as myself? And what do you think that they should take most of their time in the competition?
So basically, okay, so the advice that I have for students would be, first of all, I know that winning is important to a certain extent, but don't make that your final goal. By delivering your project, you've already won by 1,000 miles. But one of the things that you really should focus on is to take the knowledge through every single phase, because the Solar Decathlon is a very unique opportunity. It's not like anything else that you can experience in extracurricular activities at university, where you get involved with a few other projects and so on. You're actually competing by building, operating a full functioning house. And this by itself is massive as an accomplishment. One of the other things I would definitely say is that meeting the other students, we sometimes get very caught up with the idea of winning, that we tend to forget that there are other people that are competing and they have a narrative to tell, just like you have a narrative to tell and you want to share to them. But it's very important to get to meet them, go down to their projects, understand what they did, what was the context, or why they did the project in a specific way and so on. Because one of the things that I absolutely loved was just meeting the other teams. just looking at how they were able to sort of present their projects with different types of concepts. So take in as much as you can from this experience, and just have fun, basically. Just, you know, enjoy your time, because it was very, very fun to actually do this sort of decathlon and meet the other teams. And now I'm just telling you for your information, yani, just like side talk. But basically, yeah, I think if you ask any of the Team Know Howse members, we were absolutely proud of ourselves when we've submitted the work. And it was nice that when we had our friends and parents come over, that we got to show them the project and point and say, you know, we've done that. And then it was it was a very proud moment for all of us. And I think Team Sharjah will, inshallah, feel the same way and actually do even better. So yeah.
Allah, I bet it was amazing to feel that, see that accomplishment come to life. That must have been an like extravagant feeling. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rima, for joining us today. Thank you so much for giving us your informed advice and telling us about your experience, what you liked most about when you participated in the Solar Decathlon Middle East. And we're hoping to hear more from you. Good luck with all your future adventures, and we can't wait to see what you're going to be up to in the future. Thank you all. Thank all of you guys for listening, and tune in for the next interview that's going to come up next. Thank you so much.